How's it going, my ASVAB math party people? Anderson here, your ASVAB coach, and I got a treat for you in this video. We got a 2-hour recording for negative numbers, handling, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. You gotta know how to handle your stuff there, right? So remember, numbers are numbers, fractions are numbers, percents are numbers, decimals are numbers. We have to be able to look at these numbers and know how to deal with them without hesitation. Because all these bigger topics like solving equations word problems, money word problems, distance, rate, time, proportions, all of these topics deal with numbers. You can mix fractions in them, decimals in them, percents in them. Every single topic can mix any type of number in there. So let's go ahead and start by understanding positives and negatives. That way we can look at these word problems with a little less anxiety. Because I think we can all agree that it's already hard enough to figure out what you have to do and the steps for the problem, and then you actually have to calculate with those numbers very quickly. So let's go ahead and take care of half of the work by understanding the numbers so we can move forward with that confidence we want. And if you want to go ahead and get all of the recordings, all of the practice problems, and even text me whenever you need help, you can make sure that you lower your anxiety as much as possible and have the highest chance of getting the score you want, then you're going to want to look at my full ASVAB program. I have a free practice test with video solutions and a free class once a week. You can go ahead and check out that link. And if you already have and you like what you saw, then the program is the next step. The program gives you everything, all the classes, all the practice you need, and then the ability to text me whenever you need help. That's really what this is all about. So if you want to learn more about this, I know it's the weekend when you're watching this for the first time, but shoot me a text 567-698-8867 to go ahead and learn more about it if you want to talk to me. Or you can go ahead and go straight to duranlearning.com so you can check out everything we've got. The free practice test and class, we have the full program, we have our Hall of Fame where we have all of our students there who've passed, all of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next class, my party people, but until then, enjoy this one. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's ace the ASVAB and get the jobs that we want. I'll see you on the other side. Let's get to it. People, we got some rules here. Rules for negative numbers. I'm gonna go ahead and give myself enough room there. Got to zoom in. So feel free to take a screenshot of this. Don't try to write this down as quickly as possible. It's better that you understand what I'm saying. So if you'd rather take a screenshot and then look back at that screenshot while we do class today, please. So let's go ahead and check this out here. Let's start with addition. And addition and subtraction, they're pretty much the same thing. I got to make sure we're honest about that. They're pretty much the same thing. So let's go ahead and zoom in on these two here. Rules for integers. Let's look at addition. So everybody think of it like this. Let's think of it like this. Let me go ahead and draw a massive number line. And so what I'll do, I'm going to give myself a bunch of room right over here. Give me one moment, everybody. Let me add some fill to this. Boom. All right, great. Let's go and draw a number line because we're going to have a little working diagram here, okay? So let's pretend that that's 0 right over there. That's a 0 with the number line. And so let's go ahead and take a look at this. Let's start with this first one here. I'm going to use red. A positive plus a positive equals a positive. Let's first, again, I know this might sound really rudimentary for some of us, but I'm telling you, once you learn the why behind some of these ideas, you won't forget it. So let's start with adding two positive numbers, everybody. Everybody, if I have a positive number, it goes to the right side of the number line, right? Yes or no? Going to the right side, right? Yeah, we're going to the right side. And so if we have a positive number and then we add again, look at that. It stays positive. You're just going forward, then forward again. So of course, if you add two positive numbers, it's going to stay positive. Now I need to go ahead and, okay, so there was a little mistake. We were supposed to change the fonts on these to make these bigger. So just don't worry about these for a brief moment. There was a little error with the font. So don't worry about that for a moment. But let's just focus on here again, adding two positive numbers. We know this. You add a positive and then a positive again. You keep going forward. 1 plus 1, 2, 5 plus 5, 10, 7 plus 12, 19. You just keep going forward. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the other way, because this is where some folks might be looking at this and say, what? let's add two negative numbers. So for example, let's say we have something to the effect of, let me go ahead and just get rid of these here. So let's say we have something to the effect of -3 plus -5, something like that, all right? -3 plus -5, right there at the bottom left. Now, think of it like this, everybody. What direction do you go in when you are going in the negative direction, right or left? Yeah, we're going to the left. We're going to the left. So if you think about it like this, if I go -3, there's -3 right there. If I'm going to tack on or add -5, there's two real ways you can think of it. If you're adding a negative, you're adding to the left. Another way you could think of it is positive money is money that you own. The negative is what you owe. So if I already owed $3 and then I added a debt of $5, everybody, yes or no, does it make sense that we should still be going to the left? We should still be going to the left. Right, exactly. If you go -3 and then -5, you're going left again. You're still going to the left. And so in this case here, yeah, you're adding two negatives. It's the same thing as adding two positives, except you keep the negative sign. So here's another example. Let me just write this on the side next to my big old head. So what we have is, let's say this. Let's say we have 6 plus 8. Everybody do me a favor. What's 6 plus 8? I know this is going to be the hardest one of the day. But what's 6 plus 8? Help me out. 14. Thank you. I think a lot of us can agree that that'll be 14. Now let's go ahead and go the other way. Let's say we had -6 plus -8. What would that be? If I added a +6 and a +8, I got 14. If I add a -6 and a -8, if I add those two together, it's still going to be 14, but negative. But negative, exactly, because you're going in the negative direction. Now, a lot of us might be looking at this and we're saying, okay, I thought a negative and a negative made a positive. You're talking about multiplication and division. That's multiplication and division. This is addition and subtraction. Remember the difference. Addition and subtraction, you're just moving on the number line. When it comes to multiplication and division, you're scaling up and down. So that's different. That is completely different. We'll talk about that in a bit. No worries. But here, notice, same numbers. You change the signs, you change the outcome. Now, that's not the hardest part of addition and subtraction. I'll be very real with you. What probably is going to be the hardest part is when you're adding or subtracting different signs. That's when things get a little bit hairy. But before we do that, I want to just do one quick thing here. Everybody, what would the answer to -6 minus 8 be? What would that be? Just curious. Just curious. What would that be? What would that be? So I see a lot of us here, our confidence broke down a little bit. A lot of us said -2. Looking at that chat box right over there, I see a lot of y'all saying -2. No, the answer is still going to be -14. Because here's the thing, everybody. When you're subtracting, that's the same thing as adding the opposite. These two right here are the same. These two right here are the same thing. They mean the same thing. Subtracting is the same thing as adding a negative. Adding a negative is the same thing as taking it away. Adding a negative is the same as taking away. So if you're subtracting, again, that's the same as adding the opposite. They're going to be the same value. They're both going to be -14. Yes or no? Can we wrap our heads around that? So subtracting and adding a negative are the same. They are the same. So if I say, if I'm subtracting 7, that's the same thing as adding a -7. Same idea. Those mean the same thing. Because I know a lot of us are used to seeing, okay, straight up add or subtract. Some of us may not be used to seeing adding a negative, and I want to make sure that it's very clear. I want to make sure it's very clear. All right. So write this down if you need to, please, and thank you. Subtraction here, add the opposite. So if you're subtracting, again, that's the same thing as adding the opposite. So you would change the subtraction sign to an addition sign, but you would change the sign to whatever it's not. So if I'm saying this, if I'm going ahead and giving you some examples, which I do want you to write these down, I could say, hey, 7 minus 2 is the same thing as saying 7 plus negative 2. They're the same thing. If I were to go ahead and say 11 minus 9, that's the same thing as saying 11 plus negative 9. Those are the same thing. I'm preparing you right now for when you have opposite signs, because this is going to be way too important, because I know a lot of us have issues with this. I've seen your practice test results on the practice tests I have for y'all, and I see that negative numbers is a killer for y'all. So really pay attention here. So I got your question there directly there, Armani. Are we supposed to do the same thing? Change flip with subtracting? Yep, that's essentially what we're doing. So that way you can see it a little easier. Yeah, so that way you can see it a little easier. So lastly, if I were to go ahead and say, 7 plus negative 10, well, that's the same thing as saying 7 minus 10. Again, you can flip-flop between the two depending on which way you want to look at it. It's all good. It's all good. Now, we have to have the conversation of, again, when these numbers are opposite signs. Because we said if you add a positive, add a positive, more positive, negative, adding with a negative, or a negative and you're subtracting, you get more negative. But now what if they have opposite signs? Here we go. If they have opposite signs, here's how we're going to handle this. Let me go ahead and move this over for a brief moment. Move that over here, because I'm going to go ahead and show you what happens when they are opposite signs. So everybody, let's go ahead and check this out here. If we have 7 plus negative 5, let's just take a look at this. Everybody, do you think the result's going to be positive or negative? Do you think the result's going to be positive or negative? And go ahead, give it your best guess. I'm not here to judge you off of it. I just want to see, just want to understand what you understand so far. A lot say positive, some say negative. Okay. Yeah. And again, just be honest. Just be honest. Okay. Ooh, Armani, I like the rules. All right. So let's go ahead and check this out here. We have 7 plus negative 5. Everybody, what's another way to write this? Not the answer. What's another way to write this? Instead of writing 7 plus negative 5, I could write this as what? I could write this as 7 minus 5. Exactly. I could write this as 7 minus 5. Because remember, adding the opposite, that's the same thing as subtracting. Adding the opposite is the same as subtracting. So everybody, 7 minus 5 is what? 7 minus 5 is what? Right, positive 2. And there we are. And there we are. Now, let's take a look at this in the other way, though. Let's take a look at this the other way. What if we had 5 plus negative 7? Let's switch it around here. Let's switch it around. What if we had 5 plus negative 7? Will the result be positive or negative? What do you believe? Will the result be positive or negative? Yeah, you're right to say negative. If you're saying negative, you are right to say that. Hopefully you know why, but if not, don't worry. I'm going to go ahead and help you out. So here's the thing, everybody. 5 plus negative 7. The answer is still going to be 2, but it's going to be in the negative direction. So I want everybody to here to start thinking of negative numbers as a type of number and not the boogeyman. All right. So hopefully it didn't strike a nerve with anybody. But again, positive numbers and negative numbers are two halves of the same whole. I don't want you to be like, oh man, negative. I want you to look at negatives in the same way you do positives, with confidence, control, you know what to do. You just have to learn those little rules and that's it. And how positives and negatives interact. So here, the answer is going to be negative 2. Because here's what's happening, everybody. What's happening here is that when you have a positive 5 and a negative 7, everybody, is it true that I could write negative 7 as negative 5 and negative 2? Is it true that I could write negative 7 as negative 5 plus negative 2? Is that true? Right. Absolutely is true. And you know what's going to happen here? 5 and minus 5, that makes 0. 5 minus 5 is 0. And look at what's left. -2. That's one way to look at it. That's one way to look at it. Allow me to show you another way, and then we're going to move forward and practice together here. So here's the other way, and this is the straight up rule. Whenever you're adding and you have opposite signs, what you'll do is you'll subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the bigger number. One more time. When you are adding opposite signs, you are going to subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the bigger number. So let's write that down together because I'm going to show you plenty of examples here. Plenty of examples. So let's write this here and then I'm going to show you the full screen. I got you. So when adding opposite signs, what you're going to be doing is you're going to subtract the numbers, subtract the values, and then step 2, keep the sign of the bigger number. Keep the sign of the bigger number. Keep the sign of the bigger number. So please go ahead and write that there. And for those of you that are already done writing, allow me to give you one final example before we move forward. And again, for those of you that have never been to my classes before, you know that I take my sweet time in the beginning because once we have these fundamentals down, that's it, we're good. So here's the example. Everybody, quick question. If I'm looking, let's go ahead and say, this is forward for me, right? If I go ahead and I take 10 steps forward, and then I take 1 step back toward myself, how many steps away am I from where I started? If I'm here, 10 steps forward, 1 step back, how many steps away am I from where I started? 9 steps away, right? 9 steps away. We thought of it as positive 10 minus 1, and that became a 9. Now let's flip the script for a moment. Let's go ahead and say that, now I'm facing the opposite way, backwards, negative, quote unquote. Let's say I take 10 steps that way, but then take 1 positive step back. How many steps away am I? Right. I'm still 9 steps away. The negative just tells you the direction. It can be a positive 9 or a negative 9, but the positive and negative just tells you direction. You're still 9 steps away. And so that's what I mean when I say that I want you to start treating positives and negatives in the same exact way, because they truly are 2 parts of the same whole. They're 2 parts of the same whole. Yes or no, does that make a little bit of sense before we move forward here? Okay, cool. So that's why I'm saying, whenever you're adding the opposite signs, just subtract the numbers. Because if I say 10 forward, 1 back, that's 10 minus 1, that's 9. But if it was negative 10 plus 1, negative 9. 10 minus 1 is 9, but you keep the negative because the 10 was the bigger number, the negative 10. So let's go ahead and take a look at some examples right after I let you guys screenshot this. We are going to go over multiplication and division as well in a few moments. I want to make sure we practice addition and subtraction first. So take your screenshot if you need to. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, let's go ahead and get to it now. All right, let's take a look at some examples now. So we have 8 examples here. If you would like to move ahead, if you understand this completely, hey, do your thing. Do your thing. All right, so let's go ahead and check out number 1 together, my party people. Number one. All right, everybody. Are we adding the same signs or adding opposite signs, everybody? Are we adding the same signs or adding opposite? What are we doing here? Right, we're adding opposite. So what we need to do is when we're adding opposites, again, we will subtract the numbers, but keep the sign of the bigger number. So everybody, 6 plus negative 4, 6 minus 4 is 2, but should it be a positive 2 or a negative 2? It's going to be a positive 2. That's going to be a positive 2 because you're going to have, again, 6 plus negative 4 is actually the same thing as saying 6 minus 4. Because again, adding the opposite, same thing as subtraction. Same thing as subtraction. 6 minus 4 is a positive 2. You have 6 positive numbers, 4 negatives. The 4 and the 4 cancel out, leaving you with the 2 positive. Let's try this next one here. Let's try this next one here. 12 plus negative 9. What's going to happen here? Well, again, you're adding the opposite signs. So just subtract the numbers, keep the sign of the bigger number. 12 minus 9 is going to be 3. Which number is bigger? The 12. So it's going to be positive 3. It would be a positive 3, correct. Let's take a look at the next one together. Again, we're just going through some brief warm-ups here. We're good. Just going through some warm-ups. So we have 7 plus negative 10. Okay. So if you're checking this out, everybody, well, we are adding opposite signs. So everybody, what's 10 minus 7? It's going to be 3. Now, should we make that a positive 3 or a negative 3? A lot of us are saying negative. Now, why are we making it negative again? Give me the reason why. I don't care about you memorizing it. Give me the reason why. Why are we making this negative 3? Right, because the bigger number is negative. Exactly. The bigger number is negative. So with that said, boom, that's going to be a negative 3 in that case. All right. So let me reiterate this. We finally have our first negative answer. Finally. Now check this out, guys. Look, 12 plus negative 9. Remember, you can rewrite subtraction or adding a negative as subtraction. This would be the same thing as 12 minus 9. That would be the same thing. Okay. 7 plus negative 10 is the same thing as saying 7 minus 10. So I want you all to be able to see this in the same light. 7 minus 10 is the same idea as 7 plus negative 10. Same exact thing. Same exact thing. So whenever you see something like 15 minus 17, okay, subtract the numbers, keep the sign of the bigger number. I don't want you to always rely on, oh, add a positive or add a negative. I don't want you to always think about it that way. I just want you to know that this means that. Okay. Next up. The other one looks fancy. It is. It used to confuse you. It's all good. You know, we want to understand it. You know, we don't have to be, we don't have to favorite it. You know, it doesn't have to be our favorite, but we at least have to understand it. All right. We at least have to understand it. So here we have 4 plus negative 8. Everybody, before I continue, what's another way of writing this? What's another way of writing this before we go to the answer? Armani, appreciate you. Yeah, 4 minus 8. 4 plus negative 8 is the same thing as saying 4 minus 8. And remember, what we do here is we are going to subtract the numbers. 4 and 8, subtract 4 and 8, you get 4. And you're going to keep the sign of a bigger number. Everybody, which one was bigger? Right, the 8, which was negative. So this makes our answer negative 4. So I really want us to get used to this. Again, I know addition and subtraction with negatives, it can get ugly. So remember that, man. Yeah, I got you guys. So here, number 5, 6, and 7. Let's go ahead and take care of these now. So negative 7 plus negative 3. Everybody, what's different from this problem than the other ones? What's different between this and the other problems? What do we notice? What do you notice? Yeah, they're both negative. You're adding 2 negative numbers. You're adding 2 negative numbers. Everybody, adding 2 negative numbers is the same thing as adding 2 blank numbers because you'll keep the same sign. Yeah, positive, exactly. Adding 2 negative numbers is the same thing as adding 2 positive numbers. The rule is you just keep the same sign. So if I have a negative 7 plus a negative 3, just think about it intuitively. Like this is what I'm trying to get into your brains here. Intuitively, if I take 7 steps back, then 3 steps back, how many total steps did I take? I took 10 steps backwards. 10 steps backwards. So that would be negative 10. That would be negative 10. Next up, negative 11 plus negative 4. Negative 11 plus negative 4. Everybody help me out. What's another way to write this expression here? Yeah, another way to write this would be negative 11 minus 4. Another way to write this would be negative 11 minus 4. And again, it's the same deal as all the way up here. You can write this one up here as negative 7 minus 3. Same deal, same exact deal. So here, negative 11, if I'm 11 steps back and I take 4 steps back, where did I end up? Where did I end up? Exactly, I keep going left. I end up at negative 15. Negative 15. Again, remember, if you're sitting here trying to memorize the numbers that we're putting up, we're doing it wrong. We have to recognize and think about this as if it's on a number line. Positive going to the right, negative going to the left. So let's try this next one out. We have negative 10 plus negative 3. Try this one out, my party people. What do we have here? For this last one, negative 10 plus negative 3, what will we have there? Negative 13, exactly. Because if you're adding the same signs, well, add the numbers and keep the sign. Negative 10 plus negative 3, 13, keep it negative. Just like that. All right, so before I continue to number 8, I want to ask y'all real quick before we continue, are we feeling any more confident or any less confident? How are we feeling right now when it comes to negative numbers, adding and subtracting them? How are we feeling right now? Are we feeling better, the same, or worse than before we started today's lesson? Cool. I'm going to make sure this class is worth it to you. Trust me. I always love making these free classes like the absolute most essential classes. And then, you know, those the paid classes, obviously, we go a lot more in depth. We piggyback off of these ideas. Tomorrow we have money word problems. And actually, that's going to be insane. I'm going to try to get a few more new problems in there for y'all, for sure. But tomorrow's class is definitely going to be a good one, for sure. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and go over to number 8 here. So great job so far, guys. Great job. Let's go ahead and keep it up. Christia, welcome in. All right, here we go. Negative 16 plus negative 7. Before you give me the answer, what's another way to write this? What's another way to write this? Ashley, just to be straightforward. So Tuesday and Wednesdays, those are part of the program. And I'll talk about the program like halfway through class. Don't worry about it right now. But long story short, the program is the main way that my students raise their scores because they get everything that I offer. So we'll talk about that later. But with that said, negative 16 plus negative 7. Another way to write that would be negative 16 minus 7. It's the same deal. You can see it either way. You can see it either way. And that should tell you, hey, what rule are we using? It's already negative and you're subtracting. So you're already going to the left and you keep going left. It's going to stay negative, negative 23. Negative 23. All right. So with that said, we have another page here on adding and subtracting. And I want to go ahead and give you guys the opportunity to try something out timed on your own. Would you guys like to try this time? I'm not going to have you finish every single problem on the page. I'm only going to ask that you pick one and try it out. Okay? I'll give you like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and I'll let you just pick one and try it out. You know, if you don't get even one, that's all good. I really just need you to try because I need to see where your issues lie. Because when we know where your issues lie, we can start making progress on fixing those issues. So that's all I ask. Give me your effort and I can make it better. So here's the timer. Let me go ahead and grab this here, make this about a minute and 30 seconds. All right, there we go. Starting in 3, 2, and let's go. So try these out. Again, just pick one. Just pick one. That's all I care about. Just pick one. So here we go, my party people. Numero 1. So we have 4 minus 7. 4 minus 7. All right, everybody, what's another way to write this? What's another way to see 4 minus 7? What's another way to see 4 minus 7? Let me get this timer out of the way. 1 second here. Goodbye. All right, so what's another way to write 4 minus 7? Another way would be 4 plus negative 7. That would be another way to write it. 4 plus negative 7. This would have been another way to see it. In case you prefer seeing it this way, just making sure you can see it that way. Now, whether you're subtracting a positive minus a positive or adding a positive and a negative, the same rule applies. You're going to subtract the numbers and then keep the sign of the bigger number. That's it. So here we go. 4 plus negative 7. Everybody, what's 7 minus 4? What's 7 minus 4? It's 3. Now, should we keep that a positive 3 or a negative 3? Help me out. Right, negative 3. It should be negative because you keep the sign of the bigger number. So I'm going to do one illustration briefly right here, and then we're going to move forward a little faster. But I promise you, now that we've gone through what we've gone through, this illustration is going to make a lot more sense. Everybody, humor me for a moment. Everybody, if I'm trying to write positive 4, is it fair to say that I could write, like 4 positive symbols for positive 4? Is that fair, everybody? For positive 4, I could write 4 positive symbols. So let me go ahead and zoom in right there. Okay, cool. Now, everybody, for a negative 7, is it fair if I write 7 negative symbols? Okay, great. So everybody, what happens if you add a positive and a negative of the same thing together? What happens again? What happens? If you have a positive and a negative, you have like a positive 1 plus a negative 1, what happens? What happens? 1 minus 1, or a positive 2 plus a negative 2, or a positive 3 plus a negative 3. Right, they cancel out. They cancel out. So notice what's going to happen here. This right here cancels out. This right there cancels out, cancels out, cancels out. And what you're left with is right here. This is your answer, the negative 3. Right there. So I want you to understand it this way here. When you are adding a positive and a negative, really what you're doing is you're canceling out what they have in common, because a 4 and a 7, they both have 4 in common, but you're going to have a leftover 3, negative 3. So everybody, do you see where the just subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the bigger one? Because when you subtract them, you're canceling out what they have in common and seeing what's left of which sign. That's what's happening here. So when you're adding opposite signs, that's really what you're doing. You're just canceling out what they have in common and keeping the sign of what's left. That's what's going on. Yes or no? Does that make any more or less sense? And you can be honest. You can say that, hey, that's really confusing. But really, that's what's happening. When you add opposite signs, you're just canceling what they have in common, what they both share. And the leftover, that belongs to the bigger sign or the bigger number, because that's what it has. You had 3 more negatives than you did positives. Boom. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and move a little faster here. I know I'm taking my time. I know I am. I'm doing this for your own good. So I don't want to sound like your dad, but here I am, right? So let's go ahead. Number 2, let's go ahead and have that going on. Move that over here. Let's go. 8 minus 13, everybody. What's another way to write that? Another way to write that, 8 plus negative 13, exactly. 8 plus negative 13. We're adding opposite signs. 13 and 8, if I subtract them, if I take away 8 from the 13, I got 5 left. Should that be a positive 5 or a negative 5, my party people? Yeah, it should be a negative 5, exactly. Because you're going to have that negative 13, that's a negative 8 with a negative 5. But that negative 8 with a positive 8 cancels, and you're left with that negative 5. You're left with it. You're left with it. Up next, negative 8 plus 7. Everybody, negative 8 plus 7. Well, what you're going to do here is you're adding opposite signs. So 8 minus 7 is 1. For which direction should it go in? A positive 1 or a negative 1? Right, that's going to be a negative 1 because, again, that negative 8, 7 of them will cancel with the 7. But that extra 1, that extra negative 1, that belongs with that negative 8. So that's negative 1 right there. Oh, yeah. Next, negative 12 plus 10. What are we going to have here? Negative 2. We're going to have ourselves negative 2. Cool. All right. So this is the point I'm trying to make, everybody. Dealing with positives and negatives, it's the same thing as just adding or subtracting. Like, that's really the only thing it's always been. Now, it's really just wrapping your head around when to keep it positive and when to keep it negative. That's the only thing that just stressed a couple of us out, but we got to work on that. Now, let's go ahead and throw decimals in there. Everybody, do the rules change just because we're dealing with decimals? Yes or no? Do the rules change just because we're dealing with decimals? All right. So I'm looking at the chat box here and I see a lot of us, I think 100% of us said no. The rules do not change when it comes to dealing with decimals. And you're absolutely right. But what ends up happening sometimes when we start taking a practice test or the real deal? What might happen is you might throw those rules out the window and hope for the best, right? Has anybody, exactly, you start getting nervous. So does anybody feel that sometimes? Where like, you know the rules, but when you go take a practice test of the real deal, you feel like that fine dining episode from SpongeBob, where all he knows is fine dining and breathing. He threw out his name. He threw out everything he knows about himself, absolutely everything. We don't want that to happen, okay? We do not want that to happen. It's all just numbers, fractions, decimals, percents, whole numbers, integers. They're all just numbers. So with that said, question, everybody, be honest. How can we look at decimals and negatives together, knowing what we know now? How can we look at that in the future and not freak out? Any suggestions? Any suggestions? In the future, not just this problem, for any future problem, what can we do between now and our next practice test to make sure we don't freak out? Yeah, simply put, Alex, thank you. Practice. Practice. That's it. Practice. That is seriously it. You have got to practice, and you have to practice that specific topic. You know, too many of us, how many of us have done this? Oh, I learned the rules. I'm ready to take a practice test. Oh, wait. I don't know how to apply the rules. Dang. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar to anybody out here? So, okay, I'm not trying to call anybody out because it's literally everybody here. You know, that ends up happening in one way or form or the other. Don't want that to happen. So we have to learn the rules and practice the rules. That's how we'll get it done. Here we go. Negative 12.4 plus a negative 3.5. Everybody, are we going to add or subtract the two numbers? Right. We're going to add these numbers. They're the same sign. They're the same sign, meaning they're going in the same direction. You have a negative 12.4 plus a negative 3.5. You're going in the same direction. So just add these numbers and keep it negative. So that's exactly what I'll do. So I'll go ahead and go over here. 12.4 plus 3.5. Watch, this is not as bad as you think. 4 plus 5, that gives you a 9. That decimal place, drop it right down. That 2 plus 3 gives you a 5. And that 1 plus nothing gives you a 1. So you got yourself 15.9, but that should be a negative 15.9 because you're going in that negative direction. Everybody, was that so bad? Was that so bad? No. And I really hate the idea that just looking at decimals, you know, really hampers us. Don't want it to happen. Up next, if we round up, you got to be 16 for sure. So here we have negative 21.3. Let me go ahead and highlight this to make sure it's clear what I'm doing. We have negative 21.3 plus a negative 2.5. Quick, everybody, are we adding or subtracting the values? Adding or subtracting the values? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Exactly. We are adding these values. Let's go. So what we're going to have is 21.3. I'm just going to go and write this over here. Okay, cool. Close enough. All right. So 21.3 plus 2.5. Not terribly difficult. 3 plus 5 gives you 8. Drop the decimal. 3 and 2. Not terribly hard. Not terrible. Because you just have to know how to actually add and subtract. That's all you got to know how to do. Once you know the rules, then it's just adding and subtracting the right way. That's it. That is it. So negative 23.8 is the answer here. Lastly, we got some order of operations. I'm just going to walk you through one by one here. The first step is taking care of your brackets, your parentheses here. Everybody, without going ahead and doing the math on paper, do it in your head. 14 plus negative 6, what do we have there? 14 plus negative 6, what would that be? Yeah, positive 8. Positive 8, positive 8, positive 8. And then from here, drop that 5. You got 5 plus 8. Everybody, what's 5 plus 8 going to be? Hey, Tony, doing better, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's going to be 13. That's going to be 13. Booyah. Yeah, I'm still on meds, by the way, but I actually I tried Tylenol for the first time. Or not Tylenol, was it Advil for the first time on like Saturday. Works. So I'm usually against taking medicine, just because if it's like a cold or a flu, I'll just ride it out. But this time I was getting bad, so I was like, all right, whatever, I'll take it. And so yeah, so here we go. 7 plus all of that. Everybody, no matter how daunting this looks, we're gonna be doing the group first, the brackets, the parentheses. All this is right here. This right here is just a different way of writing a parentheses. It makes it a little easier to tell the difference between that parentheses and that parentheses. That's all it is. It's called a bracket, same thing as a parentheses, same exact thing. So with that said, everybody, what is that going to be? 3 plus negative 14. What is that going to be? Ooh, y'all, this is more participation than I have seen in a while, man. You guys are, I'm really liking this right now, man. You guys are making me proud right now. You guys are making me real proud. Yeah, 3 plus negative 14. We're looking at this and we're saying, yo, that's a positive plus a negative. What we're doing is we're canceling out what they have in common. So that's subtraction. 14 minus 3 is 11, and that 11 should remain negative because that 14 was the bigger number. The negative 14 was the bigger number. Exactly, Tony, yeah. So in this case, bam, 3 plus negative 14 is negative 11. And then we still have that 7 to bring down. And so now we have 7 plus negative 11. Everybody, quick, are we adding or subtracting the two values? The 7 and 11, are we adding or subtracting the two values? We're subtracting the two values, exactly. And so 7 plus negative 11 is the same thing as saying 11 minus 7, but keep it negative. 11 minus 7 is 4. Keep it negative. That's a negative 4. All right. So with that said, is anybody here, again, feeling better or feeling worse now that we've gone through this second round? I think I saw a comment earlier. Someone like gave a couple of lines there. Let me see if I can find it. Victor, okay. Yeah, wow, the last problem looks so confusing, but wow, you made it look so simple, and now I know how to do that problem. That's the thing, man. That's the thing, Victor, and everybody here. Once you know the rules, the only thing you can expect is numbers. That's really it. So I want you to be happy about that. And like now that we know how to deal with these negatives and positives, like we should feel pretty good, man. But now we have to practice to solidify it. Because if you're feeling happy and jacked up, and then you end this class today and you're like, yeah, I'm good, it's going to come back and bite you. Because the thing is, if you don't practice to solidify, it will come back to bite you. So Jamie, so I added the number outside of the bracket first and then subtracted the number inside the bracket and I got the same number. Jamie, that is absolutely fine because if you take a look here, is there anything stopping you from getting rid of that bracket? No, there's nothing stopping you. So Jamie, absolutely. You can do the 7 plus the 3 to get the 10. 10 minus 14, that's a difference of 4, but keep it negative. Same answer. Yeah, same answer. Hey, no worries, you're good. All right, so let's go ahead and take care of, we have another guided warm-up for, last one here. So last guided warm-up for addition and subtraction. Go ahead, my party people. I'm going to give you exactly the 1.5 minutes again. So we get the timer up. Go ahead and get started. And I'm going to get this timer going for you. Hope you're enjoying watching so far. As a reminder, we do have a free class once a week that I do want to make sure you get into. Typically they're on Mondays, but go ahead and click the link here to see the schedule for all the classes. And you'll see that again, there's a free class once a week. And if you've already seen how I teach and you enjoy it and you want to learn more about my program, then go ahead and shoot me a text, 567-698-8867, and say, hey, Coach Anderson, this is blank, and I want to learn more about your program. So go ahead, either sign up for the free class or ask me about the program so you can keep boosting your score and get that job you deserve. Again, let's ace the ASVAB. Let's get to it. Do it now. Let's go. So number one, I'm going to give you the answers here. We're going to go a little quicker. I'm just going to give you the answers. This should be a positive 3. Here should be a negative 6. Negative 50. Positive 19. This is going to be a positive 1. Then this is going to be a negative 2. and this should be +3. And then number 8, this is me doing it for the first time, so if I do make a mistake, let me know. If I'm going through this one, I'm going to say 2, 0, -8. All right, everybody. So there, those are. Let me just double check my answers. +3, -6, -50. I wrote -5. That's 50. 19, +1, -2. That's 7. Double negative is positive. Yup. -8. Yes. Cool. Those are all correct. Verified. So how many did you get right and wrong? You know, because if you tried only 3 problems out, if you only tried 1, 2, and 3, and you got them all right, that's great. That's great. Like, this class is not about speed. This class is about technique. You know, you got to learn the technique before you work for speed, right? So if you get them all right or all wrong, again, we have to learn from these mistakes. That's the point moving forward. Let's learn from those mistakes. So let's go ahead and we're going to get into multiplication and division. We're going to take a quick break from addition and subtraction. So let's go ahead and get into this very briefly here. So earlier we had this going on. Let me go ahead and just shave all of this off. All right. So multiplication and division. Let's take a look at these rules here. Take a quick screenshot if you need to. Allow me to pepper myself up and look beautiful. So multiplication and division, they follow the same rules. If you're multiplying 2 positives, it's going to be positive. If you're multiplying 2 negatives, it's going to be negative or positive. So that's my cue to take off these glasses and be serious. So let's go ahead here. Let's get serious again. So here's the rule for multiplication and division when it comes to the signs. If you are multiplying the same signs, that's a party, always going to be positive. If you are multiplying or dividing opposite signs, that's a bad time. That's a negative. All right. So this is only and strictly for multiplication and division. If you are multiplying the same signs, it's a great time, good party. If you're multiplying or dividing opposite signs, bad time, the result is a negative. Okay. So think about it as if we're talking about introverts and extroverts. If 2 introverts are partying, good time. If 2 extroverts are partying, still a good time. But when you have an introvert trying to party with an extrovert, someone's going to get tired of the other person real quick. And so that's going to be a negative. All right. So we can think of it in that sense. Multiplication and division with the signs, it's kind of like introverts and extroverts. All right. So there it is. And here's the proof in the pudding here. 2 positives together make a positive. 2 negatives multiplying or dividing still makes a positive. But when you have the opposite signs, positive and negative, you get a negative, negative and a positive, you still get a negative. So Edmar, what's up? Here you go. Go ahead. Ask that question. How you doing? I gave you the ability to unmute yourself, so you can go ahead and grab your mic if you'd like to, Edmar. Or you can type it out. Either way.
Okay.
There we go.
Hi, Coach.
Hey.
I have a quick question. Can you go back to last operation? At number 5. Yes, I did it. I see it was 13, but I did 7 minus 14 equals 7 minus 7.
It should be -7. Yeah, it should be -7.
Yeah, -7.
Yep.
Then I know minus outside can change the other sign inside.
Yeah. So remember this, if we're subtracting, and anybody can fill this in too. Subtracting is the same as adding the blank. Subtracting is the same as adding the blank. What goes in the blank?
Minus.
Not minus, starts with the O. It's a word that starts with the O. Subtracting is the same as adding the what? Adding the opposite. That's right.
Opposite.
Yeah. Subtracting is the same as adding the opposite. So Edward, follow along here. I think this might make a little more sense. I think I got you here. So if I got 6 minus -7, remember that subtracting is the same as adding. What's the opposite of a negative?
Yes.
What's the opposite of a negative?
Positive.
Yeah. So subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. So this 6 minus 7 or 6 minus -7 turns into 6 plus 7. And that's what makes it the 13. And that's why it should be 13 here.
Yes.
Did I put 1? That's why I got going fast. That's why I got going fast.
Okay.
Oh, you guys gotta call me out, man. Call me out, man. There's no embarrassment there. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for bringing that up. All of y'all there sitting out there, man. Y'all look like everybody else at the Oscars after Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Y'all didn't say anything at all, man. Thank you, Edmund.
Thank you.
Hey, appreciate you. All right, so with that, man, all of y'all spineless and mass. Edward's the only, Edward, for that, Edward, you're in the program, right? Oh, wait, let me give you the mic again. Edward, you're in the program, right? Leave Chris alone. Edward, if you're in the program, go ahead and text me. I'm going to give you a shirt.
Yes. Okay? I will take my exam, my test on Wednesday.
Ooh, yeah, I'm definitely sending you a shirt. So go ahead and send me your address. Shoot me a text. I'm going to send you a shirt or a hoodie for free. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Appreciate that, man. So yes, you were. Yep, absolutely were. And if you'd like me to go over number 5 here, what we're going to have. Okay, so number 7, that one I did get right. So with this one, I'm going to go ahead and show you the steps here. No problem. So what we have with number 7 is this. We're going to have the -4 minus whatever's in here. And then the 5 minus 12 turns into -7. And so then we have -4 minus -7, which is going to turn into -4 plus 7. And from there, boom, that's what's going to give you the +3. Because 7 minus 4 is 3, but you keep it positive because 7 is the bigger number. So I want to make sure that you guys see that there. So we'll take the final question here from Jose, and then we're going to get into our practice with multiplication and division. Go ahead, Jose.
Hey, coach. But the 13, isn't it supposed to be negative? Because of a negative, and a negative makes it a negative. I know you add them, but isn't it?
No, remember, because we have a 6 minus -7. And so that turns into 6 plus 7. 6 plus 7 is just straight up 13.
Because I knew you had Adam, but that's the thing that threw me off the sign. Because you got me all confused. I was like, I was going to call it out, but I was like, never mind, coach is smarter than me. I'm not going to say nothing.
But that's the point of asking questions. One, pay attention and ask questions. I'm not perfect. So will you find a mistake of mine? Absolutely. And I love it when y'all find my mistakes, because one, it shows you're paying attention. And two, I really need to do a better job of showing y'all that I'm human. So finding my mistakes is a great way for me to connect with y'all. Now, and if you're conflicted and you're confused, I expect you to ask, because there's nothing wrong or bad that's going to happen to you if you ask me to check my work. Like, what kind of a teacher would I be if I got mad at y'all for asking me to check my work? So that's a really big thing. If you ever are looking at a situation like, are you sure? Ask away.
Okay, sorry, coach, because that's what threw me off. I was like, no, I know I'm right, but I should have called it out. But I was like, no, you're smarter than me. I'll just leave it alone. But now next time I know.
Dude, I'm not smarter than you. I just have more experience than you. So with that, can I do number 8? Danae, I'll go ahead and do that very briefly. And then we're moving into multiplication and division. I'll let you take a picture of it, but I will not fully explain it. So here we have 3 plus -1. This right there turns into +2. And then 2 plus a -2. Everybody, what's going to happen with a 2 plus a -2? What's going to happen right there? Quick. 0, it's going to cancel out. Exactly. Because you have positive 2 and a negative 2. Bam, those are going to cancel right away. And so, bam, that's what's going to cancel, leaving you with just negative 8. So that's why the answer is just going to be negative 8 here. There, that one's a pretty quick one, but it's because of that little cancellation that happens. That's the reason why. Yeah, that's the reason why. So with that, Mohammed, please go ahead and type your question. I am going to go into multiplication and division here. So let's go ahead and try this guided warm-up out. I am going to give you guys same time here. Let me go ahead and put this right up. Try as many as you can. Timer is on. Mohammed, go ahead, use the mic, ask your question. So while everybody's working, go ahead.
Hi, sir. Like, I have the same question there. Like, there's you said the -6 times -7. The result, like, it should be -13 or just only 13, because the sign, like the sign of big numbers, negative. I just like, I heard, like, I saw many videos. They say like if the sign of the big number is minus negative, can you it should be negative.
We may be thinking of different operations here. I think you're thinking about multiplication there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because when you're saying the minus negative, that's going to turn into a positive. But if there's a negative in the first number, that's still going to be treated as if you're adding. Minus a negative turns into addition. Not because if you think about it only as a positive, then you might be thinking of multiplication. And I see where you're coming from. But again, subtracting a negative, it becomes adding a positive. It becomes adding a positive. Yeah. So if we see an example of that again, point it out, because I'm going to show you exactly what to do again.
Okay, sir. Got you. Yeah. Thank you.
So look out for those examples there. I'm going to show you that.
Got you.
So we still have 20 seconds here, everybody. Remember, we are going to go ahead and take a nice sweep here. Lavina, I got you. I'm going to go ahead and go up very briefly. Get ready, Lavina. I'm going to post it. I'm going to let you take a picture, and then we're coming right back to this. So 2, 1, and time. Go ahead and type the numbers that you were able to get through. How many were you able to get through? How confident are you? Go ahead and let me know. Lavina, get ready here. 3, 2, and 1. There you go, Lavina. Multiplication and division. Go ahead. All right, cool. So there you go. Let's go ahead and go back to the action. All right. So let's go. Number 1, -7 times a +4. Everybody, if you have an introvert and an extrovert hanging out, what's the result? What's the result? A negative, exactly. You're going to have a bad time. You know, at some point, one of them's going to get sick of the other pretty quickly. It's going to be a negative result. So negative, and then you worry about the 7 times the 4, and that'll be 28. All right, let me pause for a second. What strategy did I just employ? That's called partitioning. Partitioning is basically splitting up something into parts. It's the same idea behind mental math, the same idea behind dealing with simple calculations. What you want to do is you don't want to overwhelm yourself. So what I'm saying is, first, deal with the signs. I have a positive and a negative. That's a negative. 7 times a 4, 28. So my answer is negative 28. Yes or no? Do you understand the idea behind partitioning? Making it simpler. Instead of one big step, 2 easier steps. Yes or no? Does that make sense? Yeah, that's a big thing that we really want to make sure that we try out more often than not, for sure. So next up, -12 times 6. Everybody, the result, positive or negative, go. Positive or negative. It's going to be negative, and then 12 times 6. We should know this from our multiplication tables. I'm going to say should with an asterisk. That's going to be 72. -72, right there. Next up, -11 times -5. Quick, positive or negative? Go. It's going to be positive because if you have 2 introverts hanging out together, yeah, they're going to have a good time. So that's going to be positive. That's going to be positive. And then 11 times 5 equals 55. All right. Now I am going to go ahead and give a full disclaimer to cover my butt. I'm not saying that introverts and extroverts can't hang out, guys. I'm just trying to use some sort of mechanism to help you guys out. That's all I'm doing, all right? That is all I'm doing. So I don't want to see these YouTube comments when I post this up in a couple of weeks. Man, Mr. Duran really hates introverts. No, I myself am an introvert and an extrovert at the same time. Just depends on the time of day. When I'm running classes, I'm an extrovert. When the camera's off, hoodie's on, I'm on the couch sleeping. So with that, here we go. -2 multiplied by -14. Here we go. It really does depend on the situation. So we have a negative times a negative. When we have the same people hanging out together, positive, it's a good time. Exactly. It's a positive. And then 2 multiplied by 14, we worry about that, and that'll be 28. So again, if they're the same signs, it's going to be positive. It could be 2 positives. It could be 2 negatives. They're going to be the same sign. All right. Next up, -14 times -8. Everybody, a negative times a negative is a what? A positive. Yep. And let me go ahead and get rid of that timer right there. You go away. Cool. All right. So -14 and -8 multiplied together, that's going to be a positive. And then you do 14 times 8, that's going to be 112. So that should be 112. Cool. Bam. Great question. I was waiting for somebody to ask that. So Suleiman asks, hey, if it's a positive number, do you have to write the plus next to the number? Somebody want to answer that for me? Do I have to write the plus for positive 112? Nope. Nope. I can write positive 112 or just 112. Either way works out just fine. Good question. Good question. So up next here, -3 multiplied, or -8 multiplied by 3 gives us what? -24. A negative times a positive gives you a negative, and then an 8 times a 3 gives you 24. Nice and easy. Nice and easy. All right, so everybody, let's go ahead and take care of this last one here, or we have one more up top, but we have 5 multiplied by -10 multiplied by positive 12. What's the sign going to be? What's the sign going to be? What's the sign going to be? Is it negative? Is it positive? What's it going to be? I want to see how confident you guys are. I want to see. I want to see. Yeah, it's going to be a negative. It's going to be a negative. Here's the thing. Everybody, think of it like this. We have a positive, a negative, and a positive. I'm looking at this negative over here. What's the only way that a negative could turn positive? When you're multiplying or dividing, what's the only way that a negative can turn positive? When you multiply it with a what? Right, I need to multiply it with another negative, right? The only way that you can multiply a negative to get a positive is to multiply with another negative. You need a negative times a negative to create a positive. Do I see more than one negative here? Is there another negative to pair it up with? Is there any other negative here to pair it up with when you're multiplying? No. So the answer is going to have to stay negative, because you can say, hey, oh, these two together, that's going to make -50. And then when you multiply by 12, you say these two together, that'll make positive. No, that'll still make negative. Because again, they're opposite signs. Opposite signs always make negatives when it comes to multiplication and division. One more time, multiplication and division. I know a lot of us are having questions about, hey, what about keeping the sign of the bigger number? That was addition and subtraction. Right now, multiplication and division. So here the answer would end up being -600. -600 right there. All right, so we'll go into this last one here, number 8 and number 9, excuse me. Forgot we had 2 there. Everybody, which one of these is easier? Which one of these is easier? Yeah, number 9. Did anybody here avoid number 9 because they thought the answer would be big? Did anybody here avoid number 9 because they thought the answer would be big? All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead and say that there's at least one person lying. So with that said, the result is 0 because you are multiplying by 0 here. -8 times 0, 0. 0 times 24, 0. The answer automatically for number 9 is 0. Hey, no worries, Tony. And so then number 8 here. 8 multiplied by 12 multiplied by -5. So let's go ahead and take care of business here. 8 times 12, everybody. What's 8 times 12 going to be? Quick, off the top of your head, what is that going to be? 96. That's going to be a positive 96. And now we're multiplying by that -5. So everybody, what is 96 times 5? Does anybody here know the mental math rule for multiplying by 5? To multiply by 5, just multiply by 10. Then divide by 2. 10 cut in half is 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So just multiply by 10, then divide by 2. 96 times 10 is 960. That was easy. Divide by 2. We should know this. 480. So the answer here would be -480. We should know what 96 divided by 2 is. 48. Then times 10. 480. And so we can and should be able to get some of these answers here. All right. So from the ones that you've tried out, how many right, how many wrong? How many right, how many wrong? Alex, 5 out of 7. All right. 2 right, all of them correct. 6 for 6. And again, yeah, 6 for 6 is great. Yeah, you didn't do all 9. That's okay, though. Remember, we're working for technique, then confidence, and then we can work for speed. Don't worry, guys. We got this. All right, so I'm going to give you guys another one to try out here. Another warm-up here for multiplication and division here. 3. Oh, let me see some of these answers here. Nice. Yeah, Efateo, yep, you're in the program. So the very next morning, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. or by 10 a.m., you're going to see the recording in the group tutoring past course. So you're in the program, you're good. You get the recording tomorrow morning, no matter what. Yeah, no worries. All right, here we go. Next up, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead, try this one out for division. I'm going to give you guys the opportunity here to try this out with 1 minute, 30 seconds, starting now. I'll be right back. My voice is almost gone. I'm going to get some water. Hey, if you'd like to watch all the classes, get all my practice problems, and text me whenever you need help with anything at all, then check out my ASVAB All-Access Program. It's everything you need to succeed. It's how my students raise their scores and get the jobs they want all day, every day. Oh yeah, and by the way, I got a master's degree in teaching, and I've been teaching for over 10 years. I put you first. I'm passionate about it. So check this out, and let's get to work. Let's ace the ASVAB. So here we go. Number 1. 12 divided by -4. Let's go ahead and try this out here. Everybody remember, a fraction is literally division. Everybody, did you guys ever question why this symbol looks the way it does? This is division right here. This is literally the same thing. You see that? It's literally, that's literally what the symbol is. The division symbol is literally a fraction. The top divided by the bottom. That's why that symbol looks the way it does. Did anybody here not know that? Because I think this is something that I learned in like 10th grade that just like finally put 2 and 2 together for me. And I was like, whoa, like it was one of those moments like, so dude, like it was one of those. But yeah, that's how it works. The division symbol looks the way it does because it's a fraction. The top number divided by the bottom number. So with that, let's go ahead and take care of business here. Let's take care of business. So remember, guys, don't overwhelm yourselves. Think about the signs first, then think about the numbers. Or if you want to think about the numbers first and then the signs, sure. But again, this is with multiplication and division. So everybody help me out here. 12 divided by 4 is what? 12 divided by 4, that's going to be 3. Now I have to ask ourselves, is that going to be a positive 3 or a negative 3? Well, we have a positive 12 divided by a negative 4. Opposite signs. You're trying to break bread with an extrovert and an introvert. The result's going to be negative. -3. -3. Next up, 30 divided by -6. So over here, 12 or 30 divided by -6, you got a positive divided by a negative. You have opposite signs being divided. What do we get? Positive or negative? Negative, exactly. Negative. And that's going to be a -5 because 30 divided by 6 is 5. Next up, -24 divided by -3. So will the result be positive or negative, everybody? Will the result be positive or negative? That's going to be positive, right? Because we're dividing the same signs. And since we're dividing the same signs, bam, we're going to end up getting a positive. And then 24 divided by 3, what's that going to be? Yeah, just going to be 8. Just going to be 8. All good. Now, with that said, let's keep it going here. Let me go ahead and let Elena in. All right, cool. So here we go for number 4. We have a negative 45 over negative 5. Did anybody here freak out on this one saying, okay, wait, the negative's not with the 45, the negative's on the side. What do we do? Oh, nobody freaked out? Hey, cool, sounds good. Oh, you messed up for a second, but you caught it? Hey, no worries. So here's the thing. You can treat that negative as if it's the negative 45. You can also treat the negative as if it's down there and do a double negative. But either way, everybody, a negative with a negative when you're multiplying or dividing always gives you a what? Right, that's going to give you a positive. These two together, that's going to turn into a positive. And then 45 divided by 5, that's going to give you a 9. Right there. That's going to give you a 9. Boom. All right, so let's take care of 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then let's move forward with that confidence here. So Ashley, remember, so what we're doing here is we're doing multiplication and division. The rules are different when it comes to multiplication and division. I'm going to write these down for us one more time right over here so we can definitely see these. So when we have a positive times a negative times a negative, everybody gives us a what? That's right, gives you a negative. What about a negative times a positive? Still going to give you a negative, exactly. Still going to give you a negative. And then up next, if we have a positive times a positive, right, that's going to give you a positive. And if we have a negative times a negative, that's going to give us what? A positive. So I want you all to notice this. Remember that these rules apply to both multiplication and division. And number 2, notice how these are opposite signs. When they're opposite signs, notice the result, both negative. When they're the same signs, notice that we get positives. Booyah right there. All right. So yeah, exactly. So when it comes to multiplication and division, it doesn't matter which one's bigger or not. You only care about the signs. When it's addition and subtraction, you got to worry about the size and the signs. And that's why I said earlier, it might be a little harder to deal with addition and subtraction with negatives because there's so many little rules. But cool, no worries. Yeah, for sure. I'll keep that there while we do the rest of these. Just got to make sure I have the space for it. So I'm going to move these probably over. I'm going to keep them there. I'm just going to keep them there and hope for the best. So let's go ahead and take care of negative 90 divided by 9. So everyone, when we have a negative divided by a positive, the result will be what? Yeah, it's going to be negative. And then 90 divided by 9 gives us 10. Again, remember the little tip here that I gave. If you're going to be, worrying about the negatives, then just do the signs first, then do the actual numbers. So negative 8 divided by negative 4, what do we have there? Right, we're going to have a positive 2 because we have a negative divided by a negative. And so because we have a negative divided by a negative, that's going to give us a positive. And then 8 divided by 4, that's 2. Boom. Next up, negative 48 divided by 3. What's that going to give us? Well, negative 48 divided by 3, this will be, negative divided by a positive, that's going to be a negative. And then 48 divided by 3, off the top of my head, that's 16. But again, even if you didn't know that, there are techniques that you could use with mental math to kind of get yourself going. But I'll teach that in another class. Negative 16. Negative 16. Next up for number 8, lastly here, negative 155 divided by negative 5. No matter what, everybody, the result's going to be what? Right, the result's going to be positive because you have a negative divided by a negative. So that's going to end up becoming a positive value. And then 155 divided by 5, that's going to end up being 31. 31. Positive 31. So with that said, my party people, how many of these did we get correct? How many of these did we get right? Booyah, sounds good. Sounds good. So with that, here's the thing, everybody. It's already 7:30. Now, I did prepare some negative word problems here, but I'm not going to get into that box right now. What I do want to end up doing here is I want to give you guys more and more practice to deal with the negatives when it comes to the operations. So that's the direction I'm going to take. Jalen, I know. You can go ahead and leave a review for me. Give me 1 star. I got you. Just burn my whole ship to the ground. I'm kidding. So let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and just focus on the operations here because we don't have that much time left. I'll give you 1.5 minutes here per question or per slide because I'm going to give you guys all the chances here to try things out. So there it is. Let me move this over to our practice set over here. All right, 3, 2, and 1. I only want you to try out one. Just try to try out one. You can skip numbers. You can do whatever you want here, but just try one of them. Pick the one that you think is the easiest and then try it. Then once you finish that one, try the next hardest one or the next easiest one and the next one and the next one. Hey, just wanted to take a quick second to thank you for watching this video. At the end of the video, if you like what you saw, please make sure to like this video and comment your favorite part and what you learned. That way you can keep supporting this channel and helping other people succeed just like you. I'm Coach Anderson. I appreciate you. And let's keep going back to what we're doing. Positive 5 here. Again, the way that you can think of it is like this. You can think of it like 12 negatives. It's 12 negatives. And then you have 17 positives. 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17. So what you'll notice is that all of this here cancels out and you're left with the positive 5. And you're left with the positive 5. That's what ends up happening. That's why you keep the sign of the bigger number, because the bigger number is the sign that remains. So again, you keep the sign of the bigger number because the bigger number's sign is what remains. Yes or no, everybody? Does that make a little more sense there? Does that make a little more sense there? Alfredo, that's correct. Yeah, if you're in the program, yep, you'll be able to access this first thing in the morning. I also have a recording of this from back in October. You can find that in the group tutoring pass. So with that, up next, let's go ahead and take care of business here. Next up, we got ourselves 75 minus 180. Everybody, give me another way to write this. Give me another way to write 75 minus 180. Right, it's gonna be 75 plus a negative 180. That's another way to write it. And so in this case, everybody, we are adding the opposite signs. What do we do with the numbers? What do we do with those values? Yeah, we are going to, what with those values? Subtract them, exactly. Subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So 180 minus 75, what's that gonna be? 180 minus 75, that's 105. Now, should that be a positive 105 or a negative 105? Right, that's gonna be negative. Because think about it, you got a positive 75 right here, then you got a negative 180 over here. Well, 75 from both is gonna cancel because you got positives and negatives, so it's gonna cancel, but you got this big old bunch of a negative 105 left. So boom, that's why you keep the negative 105. All righty. So up next with number 3, I will not give you an explanation for this one because I want to get to the next ones here, but I'll give you the answer here. So the answer is going to be essentially 14 over 2 plus 36 over 3. So that'll end up being 12. Oh, actually, this is actually super easy. You actually don't even need to combine these fractions. Did anybody try to write these with the same denominator? Did anybody try to write these with the same denominator? Okay, so first off, let me go ahead and learn you some math. I'm looking at you, David. So negative 14 over 2. 14 divided by 2, everybody, is 7. So that's going to give me -7. And then over here, I got myself, I'm just going to take care of that right there. So I'm just going to say minus 36 divided by -3 is a -12. And so now I got myself -7. David, I'm just joking with you, man. So -7 minus -12. I got to keep you awake, man. And so with that, that's going to turn into -7 plus a +12, and that gives you a 5. And that gives you a 5. Now remember, so here we are subtracting a negative, which is adding. Subtracting a negative, and that turns into adding. So, boom. Am I still right with 5 over 2? No, it's just going to be 5. Just going to be 5. It's all good. And then next up here with number 4. Don't worry, guys. We're still going to have time for one more drill set. I got you. I'm going to create the problems myself. And so here, we're going to take care of multiplication first. So 5 multiplied by -5, everybody, what's that going to be? 5 times -5 is going to be -25. That's right. So we're going to have 12 minus 10 plus -25. Okay. Now that we're here, what's going to happen is we're just going to move left to right because I'm going to do 12 minus 10. Everybody, 12 minus 10 is? Give me that 2 right there. And then we're adding the -25. Okay, everybody, we are adding the opposite. We're adding opposites. So we got to cancel out what they got in common. We got to subtract. 25 minus 2 is 23, but it's going to be a -23. Monique, you sound like you tried this problem out with all your heart and you got it correct. Is that the truth? Is that the truth, Monique? -23. Hey, right on. I love the excitement. I love it. So next up, we got ourselves this last one here. We got number 5. We got -43 minus -19 here. So for this one, we are going to turn this into, okay, a double negative. A double negative turns into adding. Because remember, if you're subtracting a negative, you are adding a positive. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. So adding the opposite, adding a positive. So this turns into -43 plus 19. And so with that, -43 plus 19, you are adding opposites. So everybody, what's 43 minus 19? Not 34, but 24. 24, and it's going to be -24. -24. -24. Close, guys, close. But again, you know, we learn through these. We absolutely learn through these. It's going to take time, but we will work through and learn all of this. So I do have some torture over here. So here's what I'm going to do. Dwight and Christian, I'm going to answer your questions while we're practicing this next round. So I'm going to write these problems, and then Dwight, you'll go first, and then Christian, you'll be next. All right. So let me go ahead and give you guys this one. Don't worry, you don't have to do these. Don't worry, you do not have to do those. I'm going to go ahead and give you some extra questions right over here. So I'm going to give you, all right, those are your questions there. Dwight, what's your question? I got you. What's up, man?
Hi, Coach. How you doing?
Yeah, doing good, man. How are you?
Just chilling, trying to bust my head. But one thing more I ask, right, Coach? If you could go back to the lesson where you was teaching the one where you was working out before this one, right? The thing is, I get to understand the sign. Like if you see 4 over, like if you see 4 over, for example, you say 4 over 8. If you say 4 over 8, right? You're gonna say is 4 divided by 8. That's how we're gonna do it.
Yeah, if it's 4 over 8, that's 4 divided by 8. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just catch on to it, Coach. To be honest, I was looking, to be honest, today. I log in the program, log in the class. I use my iCloud to information to log inside the app that you said is supposed to study, Coach. And I kind of realized most of the questions, but I can't remember all of them. You know what I'm saying?
Right. The point is not to remember. Remember, the point is not to memorize them. The point is to understand the mechanics. So that's why we have those notes that we have with us. Oh, so time's up. So go ahead and put the questions you got, everybody. But Dwight, the point here is we want to understand the rules. So when you see that you're multiplying or dividing positives and negatives, what do? That's what you want to know, what you want to have down. But on top of that, we need to be able to perform the math very quickly. So if you see 12 plus 17, you got to be able to do that very quickly. Things like 7 plus 9, 12 times 8, those fundamental operations, that's something you got to practice every single day. You have the mental math app on your phone?
Yes, sir. I have everything you gave me. Every single thing that you gave me, Coach. I'm being late.
Sounds good. Dwight, text me right now. What I want you to text me is, Coach, do some, I'm going to call it speed logging. So just literally text me this. Speed log mental math, okay? Text me that. I'm going to go ahead and work with you directly, and I'm going to set you on a plan for mental math, because that's where we're going to start first. Because I know, Dwight, I know from looking at your account and watching you study, one of your main issues is not just the operations, but the rules as well and word problems. When you mix all three of them together, you can definitely see why you're frustrated, because we have to get the fundamentals down. The speed running with the calculations, we have to have that down. That's exactly what I'm going to start you on next.
Coach, you come like you can't read my mind, Coach.
Well, I mean, I have access to your account, so yeah, it's all good. I pay attention to all of y'all. Like, even if I don't talk to some of y'all for a couple of days, I always take a look to see if you guys are doing well. And I'm going to start contacting those who are not as active in the accounts. Yes, I pay attention to all of y'all. I pay attention to all of y'all, man. Why do you think I am as good as I am? Because I care about y'all and I put in the time to research how you're doing. So, Dwight, I do need to cut you off there because it is 7:54. So, Christian, I am going to take your question briefly, and then we're going to move forward from there.
How you doing, Coach?
Hey, what's going on, Christian? How you doing?
Good, man. I appreciate you, dog.
No worries.
Question for so for example, like number 2 over here in the practice, I see with it says 44 minus -9 in the parentheses, and I see you had like a different type of process of doing, like, make it into a plus. Now, my old algebra class, we used to we see the 2 negatives and then that parenthesis, and we would just make it into a plus sign. Is that simplified?
Yeah. Yes, it's the same thing. I was giving more of an explanation doing it. That's all.
Okay, cool. When you started explaining, I was like, well, hold up. Like,
I was just giving you the reason why we do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah, so Fidelis, this is actually the same thing that I told you to watch out for earlier, right? I told you to watch out for this. I said, hey, if you have a minus and negative, that turns into a plus. So 44 plus 9. And so Fidelis, remember, this is not multiplication. This is a positive 44 plus 9. So I really want to make sure that's very clear here. So with that 44 plus 9, that's going to be 53 for number 2. All right. So everybody, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give everybody here the answers to numbers 1 through 5. I see a lot of y'all tripping still that I do have access to your accounts. It's my website. Yeah, I can track y'all. So with that, number 1 here. So -17 plus -35. You have the same sign here. So you're going to add them together. 17 plus 35 is 52, and you keep it negative. So -52 for that first one there. So -52, positive 53. Hey, Roscoe, go ahead and not do that. Okay, cool. So then number 3, 72 times -3. Tori, just text me. I'll give you the link. No worries. So 72 times -3. What we're going to have here is a positive times a negative, which is negative. And then next up, we have 72 times 3, which would give us 216. If I'm wrong on that, correct me. So then we have 42 divided by -6, a positive divided by a negative. That's going to give you a negative number. 42 divided by 6 is 7. So -7 would be the answer here. Then -12 plus 20. Everybody think of it like this. If I go back 12 and forward 20, well, that back 12 cancels out, and then I got 8 left. So +8. And then to give you the answers to these 2 challenge questions, let me give you the answers to those. This first one here, I'm going to do this very quickly in my head, so forgive me if I get it wrong, but -22, that's going to be -3 plus 3. So -22 plus 3 is -19. -27 is what we should get for the first one. I got negative 27 for the first one. I'm going to check my work real quick. I'll check my work real quick. That's negative 22. That's negative 3. Minus negative 3, so plus 3. Negative 22 plus 3 is negative 19. Negative 19 minus 8, that is negative 27. That is correct. That is correct. Next up, we have this next one here, this fraction, this crazy fraction looking thing. Mentally, real quick, that's going to be negative 8, negative 12, negative 20, and that'll be negative 5. Negative 20 over negative 5 is positive 4. So I got positive 4 for the second one. I got positive 4 for the second one. Because that's negative 8 minus 12, so negative 20. Negative 20 divided by negative 5 is positive 4. Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. Yep, you had to distribute, Alex. You had to do the 8 times negative 1, 6 times negative 2, then add these together, then divide. Or well, you have to do that and then divide. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.